pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Missoula County acknowledges that this event takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. We have a couple public announcements. First, closed captioning.
Hello, everyone. If you're joining us for this meeting virtually today, instructions for turning on closed captioning are on your screen. If you're joining us in person, we'll have closed captioning on all the screens here in the Sophie Muiz room. Just a friendly reminder, there will be multiple chances during the meeting for public comment in person and virtually. The chair will open discussion for public comment after each staff presentation. Please respectfully keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you're on Microsoft Teams, we ask that you use the raise hand feature. This is the small hand button at the top of your screen. If you're calling in on the phone, you'll need to push *5 to raise your hand. Then once called upon, you'll need to push *6 to unmute. If anyone has any questions, please come find me during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Strohmeyer has a proclamation, and then I will also read a proclamation.
This is a proclamation for Women's History Month. Whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of the United States in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, and whereas American women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere of life in the United States, constituting a significant portion of the labor force both inside and outside the home, and whereas American women continue to perform the majority of uncompensated domestic work, and whereas American women have played a unique role throughout history by providing the majority of the nation's volunteer labor force, and whereas American women were instrumental in establishing early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in the United States, and whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background have been at the forefront of every major progressive social change movement, and whereas American women have courageously served our country in the military.
Guys all muted over there?
Okay. Continuing on, and whereas American women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights to suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist, emancipation, industrial labor, civil rights, and peace movements, all of which have contributed to a more fair and just society for all. And whereas Missoula's own Jeannette Rankin was the first woman elected to the United States Congress, and whereas Missoula County made history in 1985 as the first in the nation to elect an all-female commission, with Barbara Evans, Anne Mary Dussault, and Janet Stevens serving on the board. And whereas despite these many contributions, the role of American women in history has been consistently overlooked, undervalued, and omitted from literature, teaching, and the study of American history. Now, therefore, we, the Missoula Board of County Commissioners, and Andrea Davis, Mayor of the City of Missoula, do hereby recognize the month of March 2026 as Women's History Month, and invite all residents to observe this month and to celebrate International Women's Day on March 8, 2026 through programs, ceremonies, and activities, and to visit womenshistorymonth.gov and MontanaWomensHistory.org to learn more about the vital contributions of women to our country and state's history, dated this 5th day of March 2026 by your Missoula County Commissioners and the Mayor of Missoula.
Thanks, Dave. I also have a proclamation to read. Whereas the Meals on Wheels program at Missoula Aging Services is a valuable resource to older adults in Missoula County, and whereas in 2025, more than 120 Meals on Wheels volunteer drivers delivered 122,585 meals to 641 homebound individuals, and community lunch sites served 26,521 meals to 533 clients in Missoula County. And whereas volunteer drivers for Meals on Wheels are the backbone of this program through their dedication to bring nutritious meals and caring attention to their neighbors. And whereas Missoula Aging Services counts on these volunteers and the support of the community to serve the growing numbers of older residents who need this service to remain in their homes. And whereas we wish to raise awareness and support for Meals on Wheels in Missoula and the surrounding areas. Now, therefore, we, the Missoula Board of County Commissioners and the Mayor of the City of Missoula, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2026 as March for Meals Month in Missoula, Montana, and invite residents to thank the caring volunteer drivers, recognize the value of this service to homebound elders and adults with disabilities, and encourage residents to volunteer as Meals on Wheels drivers so elders may remain in their homes. Signed, your three county commissioners and Andrea Davis, Mayor of the City of Missoula. Thanks for that. Okay, well, next we're doing public comment on items not on the agenda. So I imagine most of you are here for the Redfern Park issue. Is that right? That was a joke, folks. I know you're not here for Redfern Park. Everybody keeps asking me about it all week long. Like, what's going to happen with Redfern Park? So I'm only bringing this up because comment, this section right now, public comment on items not on the agenda. So obviously you are here for the Blackfoot Crossing. That's on the agenda, so hold your comments for when we do that. And we have a handful of very small hearings before that. We scheduled Blackfoot Crossing last, so no one who's here for the other things would have to wait. So here we go. Our current claims, well, first, is there any public comment on items not on the agenda? Anybody can say anything about anything that isn't on the agenda online or in person if you wish. Okay, we will jump right to our current claims list. Claims received as of February 3rd, 2026 to February 25th, 2026 by the Commissioner's Office total $2,964,542.33. Kevin, please do comment, Kevin. You have 3 minutes to say whatever you'd like.
Thank you, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. I'm at work. I apologize. I've been there before, but today, like many Missoulians, are committed to work. So I know this time of the day isn't the best, most convenient for everyone, but I did want to chime in and also add again, I think it would be helpful if your settings can allow for camera so that those of us who are at work can feel as engaged as others. So maybe, and I just wanted to folks at Blackfoot Crossing that who attended our Reserve Street Public Working Group meeting that I host still most weeks since 2021. I know that's later in the agenda, so I won't cover it, but we are going to also have the developer meet with us on March 27th. If anyone's interested in participating in that. Tomorrow, March 6th, we're having internationally acclaimed Jenny Burton revisit with us, talking, she recently wrote a book called The Gabriel Plan, and she'll be talking in detail about the side effects of housing first and harm reduction, which may add some unique perspectives for Missoula policymakers to perhaps consider for Missoula. And last week we heard from the Metropolitan Planning Organization on the status of the Reserve Street Safety Action Plan. And they reiterated that they appreciated our group's feedback there. So anytime anyone listening can participate in our groups, we are covering some things that usually time does not allow for in these types of formal settings. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Kevin. Any other public comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, we're going to jump right into our first hearing. Sam Scott. Is Sam here? Oh, sorry. Daniel Stone.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Dan Stone. I am the Spatial and Taxation Analyst over in the Clerk and Treasurer's Office, and we are reviewing some petitions into the Missoula Rural Fire District today. And I thought before we dive into the legal language for these properties, I'd do a quick screen share and show a map of where these properties are at, just to provide a little more context here. So we're looking at 6 properties today. On this map here, you can see there are areas that are outlined in kind of a gray-blue shading. This is the existing Missoula Rural Fire District boundary. And the properties we're looking at today are outlined in pink. So there's these 4 properties that are just west of Big Flat Road that are petitioning in. There's this property in between Lavelle Creek and Butler Creek. And then we have 1 property down in Lolo. Here it is. And this is just south of Moe Road and Bird Lane in Lolo. So diving into legal descriptions of these. So these petitions to annex land into the Missoula Rural Fire District have been submitted to the clerk and treasurer. The properties proposed to be annexed are legally described as Tract 1 of Certificate of Survey 5768, Lot 2 of Certificate of Survey 3308, the southeast quarter of Section 12, Township 13 North, Range 21 West, Principal Meridian, Montana, and Tracts 4, 5, and 2 of Certificate of Survey 7010. And the physical addresses of those properties are 3825 Ridgeview Road, 59808, 9229 Little Ranch Road, 59847, 3150 Dobie Drive, 59804, 14235 Mission View Drive, 59804, and 2434 Morning Dun Road, also 59804. These petitions have been signed by property owners who represent at least 40% of the acreage and 40% of the taxable value of the properties to be annexed. A notice of hearing has been published twice in the Missoulian, and all property owners have been noticed of this hearing. And the petitions are now presented to the board for your decision.
Thanks, Dan. Dave, any questions?
No questions.
Do you have a motion for us, Dan?
I believe the motion would be to approve or deny the petitions into the Missoula Rural Fire District.
Thank you. Any public comment on this? Okay.
Okay, I would move that we approve the petitions for annexation into the Missoula Rural Fire District.
I'll second that and call once again any public comment on this. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks a lot, Dan. Good call. If anybody would like to take these chairs that are right here by this boardroom table, you're welcome to pull them, and we can set up another row in front. Yeah. Take a minute and let's use these chairs. Nobody needs to stand unless there's no other option. Okay, now we're going to jump to the highly contentious Redfern Park.
My name is Flana McClarty, and I'm with the Community and Economic Development Department. And I have before you an offer to sell Redfern 2, also known as Calistoga Park. So I'll go over some background information on the area, the process that we went through to get here, the offer that we have received, the public comment, and then a recommendation. So this common area, Redfern 2, which is shown in pink on the map on kind of the top right corner, is a 4.47 acre common area owned by Missoula County. It was platted in 2006. And when it was established, maintenance and utility costs for the area were covered by the Property Owners Association dues for the industrial park. So that's the Missoula Development Park. That area was annexed to the city of Missoula in 2018. And since annexation, we did not receive enough Property Owners Association dues to pay for maintenance or utility cost. And so the county took over paying those costs beginning in winter of 2022. The following summer, we entered an MOU with the city that earmarked this parcel for what we called other considerations. Some of the parcels in the area we determined to transfer to the city, some we determined to be sold. And this one at the time was earmarked with consideration for transferring the ownership to the adjacent homeowners association. In fall of 2023, we did put it to a vote to the Property Owners Association if they were for or against transferring properties in this area, instead of putting a lien on their properties since they were not paying the dues. The majority did vote for transferring of the properties. And so in winter of 2023, we met with the Homeowners Association, at which time they said they were not interested in ownership or maintenance responsibilities for Redfern. Over the next couple of years, we considered what options we had with the parcel, and determined to follow a process to try to sell the parcel. So under state law, if we believe that the parcel is worth more than $20,000, we have to have it appraised. And then we also have to publish notice if we do intend to sell a parcel. So we had the parcel appraised last December. It appraised for $155,000. This appraisal might be low for the area, but this parcel has no legal access. So without getting an easement from an adjacent property owner, nobody could drive to the parcel to develop it. There's also an easement running through most of the property for a high pressure gas main, which limits its development. And then the appraisal also assumed that the property would be rezoned from, it was rezoned as like a open space. And then the rezone was based on being, changing it to limited industrial, which is what the adjacent to the west properties are zoned. We did publish this notice of intent to sale on the Missoula County Voice page in the Missoulian, and we mailed notices to adjacent property owners. And then finally, after this, we did receive a letter of intent to purchase from Young Automotive Group, which I will go over that offer that we received. The offer is for the purchase price of the offer is for the appraised value, $155,000. The county would pay for the title insurance, which is fairly standard for real estate. This would be 0.5% to 1% of the purchase price. The offer would be that the county would finance the purchase. So the buyer would pay $25,000 at closing and sign a promissory note with a 4.5% annual interest rate, and would make 2 additional $25,000 payments on the first and second anniversary of closing, with the remaining balance due on the 3rd anniversary of closing. The offer was subject to the property being rezoned to limited industrial, which the city did update their code, and that went into effect already earlier this week on March 2nd. The offer says that the buyer will have 90 days to complete due diligence. So give them an opportunity to assess if the property can be used the way that they would like to. And then if we sign this letter of intent, the county signs, we would have 30 days to negotiate a purchase contract, so a buy-sell agreement. During this 30 days, we would only be allowed to accept backup offers on the property. If we don't come to an agreement and sign a purchase contract, then we're open to accept other offers. Public comment that we received were, why is the appraisal value and the assessed value so different? The appraisal value was $155,000. The assessed value, according to the Department of Revenue, is around $3.3 million. I'm very unsure why it's so high on this property. But the appraisal was done by a certified appraiser, and since the county does not pay taxes on the property, the assessed value doesn't really come into play for our purposes. They also asked why it was being rezoned to limited industrial and not residential. I was not part of the city's rezone process, so I'm not sure why the city chose to, as all the properties to the east are residential, but all the properties to the west are industrial. So it's right there kind of on that line. And then a comment was that they don't want an industrial building in their backyard. And then I do believe that the potential buyers here, if you have any questions from them or of me, and if not, I have a motion for you.
No questions. I want to just toss out one comment because a handful of years ago, Andrew and I and a handful of folks from our nonprofit development community visited this park to see on the ground if it had development potential. Could we work with some of our nonprofit developers to put housing on this area? We determined it did not have development potential, given that it had no legal access and a major gas line going through it and its shape and slope. So that's why we ended up where we're at right now. You got a motion? Comment? Any public comment on this? Kevin.
Thanks again, commissioners. Always concerning to see when park space is being relinquished. I'm wondering if the association involved knew when they were relinquishing this parcel that it would be turned to something else, or were they assuming that it could remain park space and someone else would just take over ownership and maintenance? And then secondly, wondering too why a motion, and this is moving through quickly when those pretty important questions are unanswered. Why, for example, the appraisal value is very different than the value the state places on that parcel. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
If the buyer is here and wants to offer any comments, I would be more than willing to hear. Come on up.
Can you say your name, sir?
Oh.
And make sure the light's on.
Oh, you need to hit the microphone base to turn the light green. There we go. Thank you.
That work?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Mike Capron, I'm with the Young Automotive Group. And I guess first off, I thank Flana for getting us to this point. We are the property owners adjacent to this park. So there's an open parcel there, 3 or 4 acres that we own, as well as the Harley Davidson store just a little further down. I'll lean into this.
There you go. Kind of swallow it.
Yeah. With the approval of the park, you know, we would get after developing that unimproved lot. We have a Mazda store in town and we hope to relocate that. So the purpose of the park would simply be additional parking. Our properties and the communities we operate in are well taken care of, and we would continue that tradition on Harrier. We'd improve it. It would be a nice space. There'll be no industrial buildings in this park area. Again, we value a good relationship with neighbors, be that DirecTV or the neighborhood that sits by the side of that property as well. But that's kind of our intent and how we see it. This would be the first step, but I'm open to other questions.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I know we've been trying to find a buyer for this for a very long time, and this seems like a good fit. So I'll move the Board of County Commissioners approve and sign a letter of intent for Missoula County to sell Redfern 2 Calistoga Park and the Missoula Development Park to Young Automotive Group.
Thanks. I'll second that. And I want to do one comment to my own, but I'll ask for any public comment. I want to add one comment on the difference between the appraised value and the assessed value. So the state of Montana uses a system called CAMA, Computer Assisted Mass Appraisal, to assess property. They don't send folks out to ground truth. A computer some software did this appraisal. They didn't pick up on things like lack of access or the easement with the gas line. And that's why this was. I imagine the new owners would challenge this appraisal, and the Department of Revenue will send a person out to visit, and then that $3 million would be adjusted down. That's what I would predict. Okay, we have a motion. It's called for comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Flana.
Thank you. And folks, we do have 3 chairs open up front if you'd like to sit. There's one in the middle there that I see vacant, and I will move another down front here if someone would like to get comfortable for the couple hours to come.
Okay, our next public hearing, this is a resolution on a speed zone and limit proposal for Pine Drive and School Lane in Seeley Lake. And Eric Dixon from our Public Works will present.
All right. Good afternoon, Eric Dixon, County Engineer. This is a request to open a hearing to consider the establishment of a school zone and school zone speed limit around the Seeley Lake Elementary School in Seeley Lake. Christina Hartman is the superintendent of the elementary school, and she contacted me in September with concerns about the speed limit in front of the school and the lack of adequate school zone signing. You'll see from the next few photos here that the signs are a little underwhelming to call out the existence of a school zone for people that are not familiar with the area. So as we leave Highway 83 on School Lane, this is what someone would see. It's a pretty lackluster speed limit sign and some school zone signs. And Cheryl, if you, next slide, please. Or if you just scroll down through that first PDF. Yeah, and so just a series of photos as we're, it's just clearly evident that as we're in the area of the school, there's no noticeable signs. If you go one more slide, please. The side roads north and south of the school, Pine Drive and Elm Drive, they don't even have signs on them indicating a school or a school zone speed limit. So in general, there's nothing that really identifies the area as a school zone. We didn't have anything on file that established the school zone or school zone speed limit. And current state law requires that the local authority, which is the county, work with the school district when establishing or altering a school zone. Since that wasn't in place, Christina took the request to the school board and the Seeley Lake Community Council, and both were unanimous in support for establishing the school zone and the school zone speed limit. Ultimately, their request came to be that we establish a permanent 20-mile-an-hour speed limit on the roads around the school. And Cheryl, if you go to the resolution, please, to the exhibit. And so this is the area that would be designated as the school zone with the permanent 20-mile-an-hour school zone speed limit. And if you go to the final PDF, please, the proposed. So once we're all said and done, if this is approved, you'll see that the proposed signs are much more substantial in calling attention to the school zone and the school zone speed limit. As presented, the signs are compliant with the MUTCD and state law, which will allow law enforcement to essentially double the fines for speeding violations within the school zone.
Thanks. We have a resolution or some language.
Oh, yeah, sorry. The motion would be to open a hearing to consider the establishment of a school zone and school zone speed limit at the Seeley Lake Elementary School.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this? Please do.
There we go. Thank you. I'm Christina Hartman. I am the superintendent with Seeley Lake Elementary. And thank you, Eric, for helping me out with this. We have had accidents around our school due to the speed. And it's hard to see in those photos, but there is no place for our students to walk when they're coming to school in the mornings as well. So getting that speed to slow down as our students are walking along that road, especially when we have a couple of feet of snow along each side of it. We also have school starts really early because we are a 4-day school week. So we're out there at 7:30 in the morning, so it's pitch black as well. So getting it slowed down again and getting those crosswalks marked, because right now you can't see them. The reason I'm requesting it to be a permanent school zone is due to that we are the playground for the community. It is not just school time. Every kid, every visitor in our community, they come to our school to play on that playground. So we have kids constantly crossing that street, whether they're going to the pizza joint next door across the street, or the church on the other corner, or going down to Rivero's for the other side. So there's tons of movement around that street.
Great, thank you. Any other public comment on this? Anybody online?
And I will just say that the second hearing is scheduled already for April 9th.
Fantastic, great, thanks. Dave?
I would move that we open a public hearing to consider the establishment of a school zone and school zone speed limit on portions of Pine Drive and School Lane at the Sealy Lake Elementary School.
I'll second that, and once again, call for any comment. Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks a lot, Eric. Okay, Kevin?
And we will take this up again April 9th, is that?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Kevin Dantic, planner with the Missoula County Department of Planning, Development, and Sustainability. Today, I'll be presenting the staff report for the MCG Vines LLC aggregation and boundary line relocation. This is a request from MCG Vines LLC, represented by Montana Northwest Company, to use the aggregation and relocation of common boundaries exemptions to the Montana Subdivision and Platting Act. For a little bit of reference here, here's a location map. We are down in Lolo. We have Highway 93 cutting north to south here. Highway 12 is right here, intersection of Highway 12. If this looks familiar for anybody, this is the parcels that were part of the approved Bell Tower PUD subdivision, which was approved by this body on September 11th of 2025. The parcels encompass approximately 33.75 acres, and there's 6 parcels total. The parcels are generally located on the west side of Highway 93. So the aggregation is intended to eliminate an underlying boundary line that was identified on Parent Tract B by the Missoula County Clerk and Recorder's Office. As you can see, there is a section line right here. This boundary has never been expunged, so before we do the boundary line relocation, we are going to aggregate this parcel and get the 6 parcels to complete the boundary line relocation. Here are the existing conditions on the parcel. These were created, tracks A, B, C, and D of Certificate of Survey 3842 in 1990, and tracks E and F of Certificate of Survey 4093 in 1992. The proposal is to use the boundary line relocation to change the tracks. Again, we are not creating new tracks. We are not changing the boundaries of the tracks. We are moving the lines within those boundaries to follow the outline of that approved Bell Tower PUD subdivision. These boundary lines that is proposed right here, they do more closely align the parcels with the growth policy recommendations. And also, for the record, the applicant's representative did mention that there are some financial considerations as to why they are completing this boundary line relocation. Again, the new parcels do follow the 2002 Lolo plan for the growth policy land use. As you can see on the left here, this is the approved Bell Tower PUD subdivision. On the right, we have the growth policy recommendations. Brown right here is where the majority of the subdivision is going to be as far as the residential uses, which are 16 dwelling units per acre. The open space that's up here on the hill, that is in the green because of the slopes that are greater than 25%. Again, if we compare that to the proposed conditions, especially on the southern part of the proposal, really does follow the growth policy recommendations. We did send this out to agency comments from Missoula County. Of course, Missoula County Clerk and Recorder did identify that underlying boundary line that the aggregation will take care of. Missoula County Public Works Building Department, there is one electrical permit that needs final inspection. Of course, all further permits will need appropriate permitting by all departments. The engineering department did mention that they do have 56 connections for the Lolo Water and Sewer District to that Bell Tower subdivision. That does not affect those approved 56 connections, nor does it change the subdivision in any way, shape, or form. We do use evasion criterion review to make sure we are not evading subdivision review with these subdivision exemptions. A lot of these did play into the subdivision itself, which once again has already been approved. This does not change the subdivision in any way. The claimant is in the business of construction. The projects were a subject of scoping and pre-application meetings for the Bell Tower PUD subdivision. The exemption does affect 6 or more tracks. You're probably thinking, why are we seeing a boundary line relocation today? Most of the time, these are administratively approved by the subdivision administrator. However, Missoula County subdivision regulations do give the subdivision administrator the authority to present anything to the Board of County Commissioners for their approval, and has been past precedent in our Office of Planning, Development, Sustainability. Any boundary line relocation with 6 or more tracks does come before the governing body. And one final evasion criteria, it is contiguous to platted lots in West View number 3 up on Capdevilla on the hill in Lolo. However, this does not connect to Capdevilla, nor will they use Capdevilla in any way. So, and with that, I do have a recommendation for the board.
Thanks, Kevin. Is the owner or developer's representative here? Would they like to speak on this? Okay. Any public comment on this? I'm just going to offer this up to y'all because you're here. This is an interesting case. There are underlying lines, not lines that coincide with the existing development. These are underlying lines from previous historical developments. And what it appears that the owner and his developer's representative are doing are making sure that those underlying lines are expunged and consistent with the current development. This doesn't actually change anything on the ground right now, which I feel like on their part is cautious, precautionary, certainly good sense to make sure they don't run into any trouble in the future. Everything's a teachable moment, folks.
I do have a question.
Okay. Yeah.
So last call for the owner's rep or the applicant. I do have a question that I'll have to pose to staff if you're a no-show. Okay. Kevin, so any insight into why this is coming before us now as opposed to why this was not dealt with at the time of subdivision? Was this only discovered after the fact?
That I cannot speak to. What our thoughts have been with the with the proposal here for subdivision exemption is the financial does come into play a lot. If they are proposing to develop the lots where the residential uses will take place, which is defined by this blue area right here, if that could be financed separately, this is per chance that we wouldn't have to include this parcel that is all open land for the proposed park that's undevelopable because of the slopes. That takes it out of the equation. Again, this is what staff had maybe thought was happening as far as the financial considerations. However, we have not confirmed that.
Okay. Well, the net effect is really not creation of any new lot. So
that is correct.
How about that motion again? Okay, with that, I move to approve the request by MCG Vines LLC to utilize the boundary line relocation and aggregation exemptions on properties legally described as tracts A, B, C, and D of Certificate of Survey 3842 and tracts E and F of Certificate of Survey 4093 based on the findings and conclusions in the staff analysis and as presented in the exemption application and affidavit.
Thanks. I'll second that and call once again for any public comment. Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Thank you.
Now we're going to do Blackfoot Crossing. So I want to give you guys a little rundown on how this is going to go. So first, what we'll do is we will have a staff report from Jenny Dixon, who's making her way up right now. And then we will hear a staff report from Andrew Hagemeyer, who works with our Office of Economic Development, because this area is in a targeted economic development district. And those rules come to play in this. So I think we thought it was important that you would hear from Andrew as well. After that, we'll do public comment. As you can see, we have this new shot clock up here. Everybody gets 3 minutes for public comment, and this way you can see where you're at. If you feel like you're going to say something that someone else has said, you probably don't need to say it, given that we are somewhat time constrained. And if you so choose, you're welcome to do it anyway. I'm just putting it out there. My friend Commissioner Strohmeyer has to leave here at 4:30 to get to the university. So I'm going to say right now, we are not going to be done by 4:30. What this means is we will do the second half of this meeting where the decision-making process and possibly more public comment may come into play. And we'll check in with staff right now. If you can't do this in this moment, you can look on your computer and figure it out when it would be, whether it would be next Thursday or the following Thursday or whatever Thursday you deem appropriate. March 12th, it would be. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was just keep going while I think of the other things.
Yes, and just to tag on to what Commissioner Slotnick said, clearly there is a lot of interest in this project and a lot of material to sift through, and taking a little bit of extra time following public comment today will certainly allow us to be more deliberative and to consider all of that input.
So lastly, and this isn't by state law or anything, just something I've noticed from doing this for a bunch of years. If you can be succinct and polite, it's much easier to absorb your message. Even though you're really angry and full of righteous indignation, and as you should, it's much easier to be heard when you are succinct and polite. There you go. Okay, we will start with Jenny Dixon.
Actually, we're going to start with Kathleen on growth policy and zoning, and then I'll follow up on the subdivision very briefly, and then I'll leave it to Drew.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Kathleen Arthur. I'm a planner with the Missoula County Department of Planning, Development, and Sustainability. Today, I'm presenting a proposal from Gregory Morse of Blackfoot Crossing LLC for a growth policy amendment and rezone of a property located at COS 6988, Tract 1B in the West Riverside neighborhood. The subject property is 107 acres and is located adjacent to and south of the West Riverside neighborhood. It is bordered by the Blackfoot River to the south, Highway 200 to the west, and public lands to the east. Note that there are 2 internal tracts located within the property that are not part of this proposal. These 2 properties will not be amended. The property was used as a log yard for the Stimson Lumber Company, which closed operations in 2008. The property is currently vacant and has been for over a decade. The current industrial designation is due to the historical use as a log yard. There is an existing closed-capped landfill on site consisting mostly of wood waste that is left over from its previous industrial use. The property is designated as a targeted economic development district. These districts are intended to support economic development and growth through the development of infrastructure. The applicant is requesting a growth policy amendment and rezone of the property. The proposal would change the designation from heavy industrial center to designations that allow for residential and commercial uses while protecting open space and recreational areas. The applicant plans to improve the site with infrastructure improvements such as roads, sidewalks, a sewer and water system, and recreation enhancements. The current land use designation is industrial center heavy, with a small portion of working lands on the eastern portion. The proposal would change the land use designations on the property from heavy industrial to commercial center, shown in red, neighborhood commercial, shown in pink, and resource and recreation, shown in green. The industrial center light and working lands designations would remain. The proposal also requests rezoning the property. The existing zoning is primarily industrial center heavy. There are portions zoned industrial center light on the north side and agriculture working lands to the east. These would remain. The proposed zoning would align with the land use designations being proposed. The proposed zoning districts are community commercial, industrial center light, neighborhood center, resource and open lands, and agriculture working lands. The applicant has proposed a water and sewer system for the development. The system would be built so that it could be expanded to surrounding areas in the future. Hooking up to the system will not be a requirement for existing neighborhoods. The proposed land use designation of neighborhood center requires a minimum density of 8 homes per acre. Without this infrastructure, attaining that density would not be possible. Chapter 8 of the Missoula County's growth policy specifies criteria that must be met by private parties seeking to amend the growth policy. The criteria provides a basis for the governing body's determination that the proposal is consistent with the Missoula County growth policy and the 2019 Missoula land use element. The following slides will show an overview of each proposed land use designation and how they comply with the goals and objectives of the growth policy. Commercial center. The commercial center designation is appropriate due to a number of factors. Being located at a major regional transportation junction makes it well suited for the variety of uses allowed in this zone, many of which are listed here. Auto-oriented services, food and beverage sales, dining and lodging are all potential uses allowed in this designation. The developer has proposed a travel plaza for the site that we will discuss later on. The commercial center land use designation allows for some intensive uses. However, the current heavy industrial designation allows for hazardous intensive uses. The commercial center designation is a much more appropriate designation due to its proximity to residential communities and natural resources. The commercial center designation is consistent with the growth policy. Located on a major highway interchange at Highway 200 and I-90, the uses allowed for this and this designation would be appropriate. A diversity of housing types would be allowed, increasing potential housing diversity. As a designated TED district, the development of commercial use is a goal for this area. The proposal includes the development of infrastructure to support the uses being proposed. Public comment has been supportive of changing the land use designation on this lot. However, some recent responses to the proposed travel plaza have been negative. Neighborhood center. This designation is being proposed for the central portion of the property. The proposal calls for the development of a variety of housing and commercial development, including detached dwellings, multifamily housing, and neighborhood scale businesses. Neighborhood pathways, multimodal transportation infrastructure, and community spaces are elements included in the proposal. There are a variety of uses allowed in this designation that could serve the community. Neighborhood center is consistent with the growth policy. The location is appropriate due to its adjacency to the West Riverside community. There is access to a highway corridor and transit. Medium-density residential housing available to own and rent is appropriate for this location and strongly supports the goals of the growth policy. As a designated TED, the development of commercial use is also a goal for this area. Public comment has been supportive of residential and commercial development. The open resource and recreation designation is being proposed for the corridor alongside the Blackfoot River. This designation is appropriate as it preserves the riparian corridor. It will protect the corridor from future development and includes a trail easement. This designation at this location strongly aligns with many goals of the growth policy. It will buffer the Blackfoot River from additional development in perpetuity, protect a wildlife corridor, and preserve the riparian environment. The proposal includes a public trail easement connecting the Bonner Streetcar Trail and parking area on Anaconda Street with public lands to the east. Public comment strongly supports the enhancement of recreation opportunities and protection of open space on the property. The working lands designation is being proposed for the northeast portion of the property. This area of the property is comprised of steep slopes and is surrounded by public lands. Development within this designation is limited. The working lands designation will protect the steep slopes from development. It will also preserve wildlife habitat and buffer the neighboring public lands. The plan allows for increased public access to these lands, enhancing recreation opportunity. Public comment strongly supports the enhancement of recreation opportunity and open space on this portion of the property. The proposal strongly supports many of the goals outlined in the growth policy. The proposal promotes the responsible use and enjoyment of publicly owned lands and waters while protecting natural resources. It promotes economic development where previous proposals have failed to establish heavy industrial uses on the site. The proposal strongly supports the goal to proactively plan and provide for the logical growth of communities while sustaining county resources, guiding development to areas most suited for it. It supports the provision of infrastructure and services. It provides opportunities for a wide range of housing choices and promotes healthy, active communities. A thorough analysis of the proposal and all the growth policy goals is available in the staff report. The Missoula County Land Use Element lays out actionable plans and strategies to implement the goals of the growth policy. It provides a plan for the physical framework needed to facilitate unique neighborhoods. This proposal implements strategies outlined in the land use element. The West Riverside area has been identified as an appropriate location for neighborhood development. It has good transportation connectivity, high walkability, low hazard risk, a neighborhood school, and a distinct identity to expand upon. The residents of West Riverside have expressed support for new housing on the site. The primary obstacle to development is the lack of sewer and water infrastructure, which is a key component of the applicant's proposal. The proposed land use designations for this property facilitate key objectives in the land use element, including the building of compact development patterns, providing adequate area for housing, promoting a wide range of housing types, using infrastructure already in place, and the development of new infrastructure in West Riverside. The proposal includes rezoning the property. The review criteria for a zoning amendment focus on alignment with the growth policy, public health and safety, impacts on resources, impacts on the surrounding region, and congruence with surrounding zoning districts. A comprehensive review of these can be found in the staff report. Staff findings concluded that the proposed zoning is consistent with the proposed land use designations and is therefore made in accordance with the growth policy. The proposed zoning is designed to secure safety from fire and other dangers, promote public health, public safety, and general welfare, and facilitate the adequate provision of transportation, water, sewerage, schools, parks, and other public requirements. The zoning code implements the 2019 Missoula area land use element, which considers the appropriate type and density of development based on location, site constraints, and levels of infrastructure. Blackfoot Crossing LLC hosted 2 community engagement forums on February 4th and July 14th of 2025. They attended the Bonner Milltown Community Council meetings, and the proposal was posted on the Missoula County Voice page for public review and comment. Legal ads announcing these meetings for the proposal were published in the Missoulian on January 6th and January 13th. Legal notices were posted at the county courthouse, the administration building, Missoula Post Office, and the Bonner Post Office, and on site. Adjacent property owners within 500 feet of the parcel were notified by mail. The applicant has collaborated with and incorporated many recommendations received by agencies, including Emergency Services and Fire, the Montana Department of Transportation, and Missoula City and County Public Works. There were no agency comments in opposition to the proposal. The applicant has addressed access and easement concerns with the U.S. Forest Service, Parks and Recreation, and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. The Planning Board heard the proposal on January 20th, 2026. They voted unanimously in support of the growth policy amendment and rezone. Board discussion points included concerns regarding density. Staff noted that all agreements to set a more limited density in the neighborhood center district would be accomplished by a private party agreement. The only role the county has in the matter is to ensure that minimum density requirements are met. The open resource designation along the Blackfoot River will carry a trail easement. However, at this time, there is no public entity that will take management for a trail in that location. The easement will allow for future trail opportunities. The Travel Plaza and Commercial Center zoning was a point of board discussion. The pros and cons of the Travel Plaza were discussed, as were the building footprint allowances in the Commercial Center district. Ultimately, the board voted to recommend approval. Public feedback we have received on the proposal can be summarized as follows. Support for affordable housing, community-oriented commercial spaces, trails and open space, transition away from heavy industrial use, a new wastewater system unaffiliated with the city of Missoula, growth of the student population in the local school. Opposition, development of a new travel plaza, increase in traffic, potential high density of the new housing, impacts on the cost of housing, change in character to the existing neighborhood, and the potential impact on groundwater supply and existing wells. Due to the public comments in opposition to the proposed travel plaza, staff thought it would be important to address these concerns the best we can at this time. We recognize the potential to assume the new travel plaza would resemble the town pump across the highway. There are many site development standards that will come into play once a building proposal is submitted. These standards would mitigate the impacts of the travel plaza on surrounding neighborhoods. Regulations would require screening, buffering, and landscaping on the site adjacent to public right-of-ways. Signage will be limited. Traffic studies have been conducted and traffic mitigation will be required. These regulations were not in place when the existing town pump was developed. We recognize the strong opposition to the Travel Plaza and have put forth 2 alternative zoning options for consideration: Industrial Center Light and Neighborhood Center. It is important to note that each of these zones come with a list of allowable uses, some of which may be desirable and some others not. We cannot condition zoning to only allow some of the uses allowed in a given zone. There are a range of factors to consider when comparing alternative zones, and we have prepared this information for later discussion, if need be. If there is a decision made here today on the resolution to adopt the growth policy amendment and rezone, there will be an additional 30-day public comment period before final adoption. The 30 days will begin after the first legal ad is posted with the resolution to adopt. This right now is April 9th, but this is a tentative date, and if no resolution is decided today, that date will be postponed.
All right, thanks, Kathleen. For the record, my name's Jenny Dixon. Kathleen covered the zoning and the growth policy amendment and the rezoning. I am going to cover the subdivision aspect of this project. And I actually would like to linger on this photo for just a minute. It's taken from this perspective as if you, well, I guess if you climbed that town pump, really tall town pump sign and sat up there with your camera and took a picture. That's the angle. So you're seeing the site from the southwest looking towards the Bonner Mountain. This hill in the background here would be the area that Kathleen described as agricultural working lands, which is proposed in the project as Common Area 5. You can see the West Riverside neighborhood here over on the left side, the existing industrial structure that is not part of the project, First Street, Anaconda with the Milltown State Park, the Blackfoot River, and then of course, if you're sitting on the town pump sign, you're in the middle of the 12-acre site, 15-acre site for town pump across the highway. So I'm just going to take probably at the most 10 minutes of your time, and then I would love to hear public comment and if time, deliberations. I'm going to just hit some highlights about the project, including phasing and just the context of it being in the TED. Drew is going to speak more to that after me. I'm going to go over some of the subdivision review criteria and the staff recommendations, including for 3 variance requests. And I just have a little note over here on the side, which will either come into play today or in a future meeting, that the order that we've presented are the order that you take your motions in on this project. So the property, or the proposal is to create 5 lots on 78 and 0.14 acres. 4 lots that were highlighted in pink on Kathleen's map are proposed for the NC zoning, and that encompasses about almost 42 acres. And then there's 1 lot up here that is currently ICL that would remain ICL as a light industrial lot. And then
Jenny, could you not use acronyms and just state ICL, NC, et cetera? Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Yes,
my apologies. NC is neighborhood center or neighborhood commercial, ICL light industrial, and I will work on that. You have this light industrial tract here that is proposed also to have a common area where an existing berm is located. You have these 4 lots here, phases 1, 2, 3, and 4 would be the neighborhood center. And then this other portion of phase 4 is a common area on that hill. And you also have a proposed common area along the riverfront here. The neighborhood center zoning has a minimum residential density of 8 dwellings per acre. So at the 42 acres, the full development is expected to produce at least 355 homes And my understanding is that has been capped at 400 by the subdivider through private contractual agreements. The phasing is proposed over about 9 years with a phase 4 filing deadline of 2034, December 31st, 2034. The property is within the Bonner West Log Yard TED, and the community and economic development comments emphasize that water and wastewater treatment are key enabling infrastructure for the proposed development. And our CED director will be speaking to that a little bit later. Let's see here. Sorry, this shows the phasing plan I was just discussing. The different colors are different phases that would be platted or developed over time, over that 9-year period. The primary vehicular access is via Cowboy Trail, which connects to First Street, and it runs horizontally across the page here. The secondary access points or accesses are Flying Main Lane, the Western North-South Road, and Road A. All roads are proposed for public access. However, interim road maintenance will be private until the county accepts the roads for maintenance. The county is willing to accept the roads for public maintenance if the subdivider initiates what's called an RSID, a Rural Special Improvement District, for maintenance of those roads. And that actually is a condition of approval. Cowboy Trail, the main road, is proposed with 2 11-foot wide travel lanes, 2 8-foot wide on-street parking lanes to be constructed as a result, a 36-foot wide paved width within a 75-foot easement. And this portion is being constructed with phase 1 of Blackfoot Crossing, and then they will continue down to this point in phase 1. Phase 2 will include Flying Main Lane. Phase 3 will include Road A. In phase 1, Flying Main Lane will be constructed to a 20-foot wide gravel emergency access drive. And then in phase 2, it will be built to its full road section. Lot 5 is what we would call a through lot. Through lots really are defined by having road frontages on parallel sides. And in this case, there are road frontages on all 4 sides. The applicant has requested a variance to that through lot prohibition. And in this case, given the large size of the lot to accommodate potentially future development that will incorporate other more local type roads, this variance is recommended for approval with a condition that private driveways may not access West Riverside Drive. Only alleys approved by the county could potentially access West Riverside Drive. On-street parking is not permitted on West Riverside Drive. The road, this gets a little complicated. The road, West Riverside Drive, is considered an off-site road from First Street to Fifth Street. And what that means is that the property line doesn't encompass the road fully. And when that happens, the subdivision regulations do not require improvements to that road. But just by happenstance of alignment, the road goes a little bit at an angle so that from 5th Street to 9th Street, the road is fully encompassed within the property lines and therefore is considered an on-site road. And on-site roads have different standards. The applicant has requested a variance to not construct West Riverside to its full required width so that you don't have 4 blocks of an improved road that then, dead ends on the east and connects to a much lesser improved road to the west. So staff is recommending approval of not having to widen or get additional right-of-way for West Riverside, the on-site portion. I'm a little behind in my slideshow. Sorry about that. We just talked about all that, but we do. I do want to just quickly run through the 3 variance requests. As I mentioned, the condition for the through lots with the no access onto West Riverside, the variance to not improve the on-site portion of West Riverside Drive with approval. And then finally, a third variance also on West Riverside Drive, which requires sidewalks, boulevard sidewalks and landscape boulevards. There's only 45 feet of width, right-of-way width for West Riverside. So there's really not room to make those improvements, but we did feel that there was adequate room to at least install a 5-foot wide curbside sidewalk. And we drafted a condition in the staff report to be able to allow minimum 5-foot wide curbside sidewalk, and where possible, any kind of landscape boulevard, if the engineering design would allow that. I think this is probably has been a lot of interest of the neighborhood and a lot of discussion regarding traffic impacts. And so I want to talk for just a minute about the traffic impacts associated with that planned road design that I just went over. The applicant provided a traffic study and concluded, well, first of all, let me explain that the traffic study analyzed a 2034 build out with the following assumptions: that there would be at least 335 residential units, when in fact there will be at least 355. So it's a little bit under. That there would be 40,000 square feet of industrial use, and that there would be a travel plaza with casino components. Staff requested the road connections up to West Riverside. Initially, they were proposed as dead ends or non-existent. And so the subdivider prepared an additional addendum memo to the traffic study analyzing that change. And let me just go back to that. These two roads going up to West Riverside. The study concluded, and the addendum memo concluded that only 15% of the trips generated by this entire development would potentially use West Riverside, split between these two roads. And of course, we look for those kind of road connections always in our land use planning. The study recommended a roundabout be installed here at this number 2 on this map at the intersection of Old Highway 10, Cowboy Trail, and First Street. And that would happen with phase 1. A condition of approval does also require an executed agreement with MDT prior to development at all, addressing truck routing, multimodal safety, construction and maintenance responsibilities, West Riverside speed, volume, and PED safety evaluation triggers, roundabout timing triggers, and post-occupancy monitoring thresholds. And that's a lot of MDT jargon that I'm not sure I can try to walk you through that if you need more explanation. But I guess suffice to say that MDT wants to ensure that any traffic generated by this development is accommodated at their thresholds of safety and functionality. The stormwater plan has roadway runoff into curb inlets, and it's anticipated to be privately maintained by the HOA or a similar entity. And a condition requires covenants to be amended to assign that stormwater maintenance, the responsibility for that shared infrastructure. As I mentioned, sidewalks are required throughout this development, except for West Riverside at 5-foot wide boulevard sidewalks with a 7-foot wide landscape boulevard on both sides of the road. I've already discussed how West Riverside is an on-site, off-site road and the sidewalk situation there. The wastewater treatment center or system is to be a centralized public MBR system, and the potable water is going to be provided through a public water system with a cistern and distribution lines designed to support both domestic and fire suppression needs. The applicant is proposing to relocate public well supplies from their original preliminary plat locations. And we established a condition of approval on the subdivision that requires DEQ and PDS approval of final well locations with appropriate easements. DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, and thank you. I've been doing this too long, I'm sorry.
And that's the state, and then PDS is?
Planning, Development, Sustainability, that's our department. Thank you for keeping me.
And MBR?
Membrane Reactor System, Bioreactor System.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we are to, while I'm here, I'm going to talk about water supply for fire protection. The fire hazard assessment score for this property was low at 38. The fire suppression water will be provided via this community public water system with hydrants. And most lots are within or within approximately 600 feet radius of those hydrants. Conditions of approval require Missoula Rural Fire District and Public Works approval of the final road widths and pullouts and the hydrant plans. And lastly, on that, a condition requires that the covenants be amended to assign system and hydrant maintenance to the HOA. So thus far, nothing in the development is going to require county maintenance other than roads until the county decides that they're willing to accept them.
HOA is Homeowners Association.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Want to talk briefly about common areas. As I mentioned at the beginning, there are 3 common areas. One in the yellow here, which has the existing berm. That's common area 3, which happens with phase 2. Common area 4, which is along the Bitterroot River, happens with phase 1. And includes the trail easement and along the existing social trail that Kathleen was mentioning. And then here in phase 4 is the hillside common area that has some steep slopes and actually is also adjacent to U.S. Forest Service and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. Minor subdivisions like this are actually exempt from parkland dedication. So anything in the realm of common areas like this are above and beyond what is required. Regarding that proposed trail easement, as I mentioned, it's along an existing social trail, which has not been improved. Nobody's claimed maintenance responsibility for it, and the developer is merely allocating public access easement along that trail. Although actually I should clarify along the entire common area, but specifically calling out a public access for that trail should an agency to be determined in the future decide to construct and maintain that trail. FWP noted that they will not do that. And are, they want to emphasize minimizing disturbance along the riparian corridor at that location. In that vein, in Common Area 4, we have floodplain and riparian resources, and the county zoning identifies a 50-foot wide protection area along rivers and streams, and then along the Blackfoot River specifically, an additional 125-foot buffer area for riparian resources. The county regulations also require protecting these areas, and so we have drafted a condition that the riparian management plan that was prepared by the applicant, which is suitable, be attached to the covenants, and this requires compliance with the zoning regulations and that buffer distance that I just mentioned. The FEMA floodplain is mapped along this area, and while it does encroach somewhat into the common area 4, it does not overlap any developable lots. A condition requires that the plat include that the floodplain be included in the no-build language, just as the riparian vegetation is. The county requires subdivisions that disturb soils to prepare a weed management plan and a revegetation plan, and those plans will be recorded with the covenants so that all current and future property owners are required to follow them, and a condition of approval requires clarification of who is responsible for weed control and long-term maintenance of the common areas. Last but not least, talking about the high-pressure gas line that crosses the property from northeast to southwest. is designated as a no-build zone with additional 5-foot building setbacks on each side of that for a total of 50 feet. I have recommended motions. Staff is recommending approval or conditional approval of the 3 variances as well as the main motion for the 5-lot subdivision. I did not want to overload you with text of what the conditions are, primarily because there are 38 of them. None of them are contested by the developer, and they are all essentially what I've covered so far and pretty standard in terms of reviewing final plats for plans for different kinds of infrastructure. So that's the end of my presentation.
Great. Thanks. So Kathleen, I just wanted to ask you a couple questions in the name of unpacking acronyms, and then we'll get to Andrew, and then we'll do some questions, and then it'll all be up to you guys. So you described a few different zoning alternatives. One option is the proposal as is. The other 2 options were NC Neighborhood Center and ICL, Industrial Center Light. Would you mind for just a few moments describing the sorts of activities that can and can't take place in those types of zoning designations, just so that people here would understand what those options would functionally mean?
Yeah, and I'm also just going to throw up a couple of like comparison charts, because use is important, as is like the footprint of buildings allowed and things like that. Sort of gives you more of like a sense of scale and things like that. Just one moment. Might not be able to get it up. I will just go over them. So what the developer is proposing is commercial center for that zone. The kinds of things that are allowed are casinos, multifamily residential, restaurants, and grocery stores that would be large.
What does large mean in terms of square feet?
So the max building footprint in commercial center is 80,000. What? No. Okay. I will work on it. I lost the meeting.
Keep going with the verbal description if you want.
Okay. Sorry about that. And so what is not allowed, what is currently allowed in that zone are, big, heavy industrial type things. So what we're recommending is, as an alternative, just to consider and discuss, is industrial center light. One key difference is the building footprint size for industrial center light is 280,000 square feet. So quite large. It's industrial oriented. It won't allow any kind of residential development or anything that sort of services residential. So like markets and things like that would not be allowed. And the travel plaza would be allowed in industrial center light by special exception.
What does a special exception require?
A special exception is an additional public process that the developer would have to go through. And it would go through this entire process. Again, it would go through planning board and the commissioners, and it would also open up an entirely new public discourse and comment period. And they would be asking for an exception to the rule of, say, no travel plaza. And it would allow us to put conditions on that use. So sure, you can have a travel plaza, but we're really going to limit like hours or noise or how much parking you have or mitigating. A lot of it would be oriented towards mitigating the impacts to neighboring communities, West Riverside. So that is a special exception.
And I would just clarify that that is all accurate, but it does not come to the commissioners. It goes just to the land use board.
Thanks, Jenny.
And then we still have neighborhood center.
Yes, and so neighborhood center is the zoning that is being proposed for sort of the middle of the big development.
But it is also an alternative for the area that right now where the proposal calls for commercial center.
Yeah, so, yes, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna get it up
He's
again right
having a
now.
little tech
We're
issues.
working on that.
All right, I got it. I had accidentally left the meeting, guys, sorry.
Hey, just want y'all to know while we're doing this, it's super helpful to keep your talk with each other pretty quiet so we can all listen. There's a lot of people in here, and thanks for your cooperation.
So we talked about the industrial center light, and so this is not a map, sorry. This is like a comparison table that I'll show, and then I'm also happy to also put the map up again. But this just sort of gives a breakdown of the allowed uses and also, again, the square footprint. So commercial center, which is what the developer is proposing, the square foot is 80,000. And for neighborhood center, it would be 10,000. So the buildings would be considerably smaller that are allowed. Commercial center allows outright like casinos, again, dense residential restaurants and things like that. And the travel plaza outright. Neighborhood center would not allow a travel plaza. It does allow like gas stations. So it would be, I guess, a modified version of a travel plaza. Again, this is just open for like discussion and consideration.
As well as residential eating and drinking establishments, food and beverage sales,
Yeah.
small scale markets.
More community-oriented commercial, less intensive uses. What?
Hold on a sec, Kathleen. Dave?
Yeah, just so that everyone is working from the same page, there is another alternative, and that would be do nothing with the zoning, correct?
Right.
Keep the zoning as heavy industrial. So we basically have four options before us. Do nothing and retain heavy industrial. The applicant's proposal of commercial center, industrial center light, or the least intensive neighborhood center.
Right.
And we're right now focusing on, if you bring the map up, just that southwest corner where the travel plaza and commercial center zoning is being considered.
Right.
We're not right now talking about the neighborhood zoning, neighborhood center zoning, which is in the center of the property.
Right. So this is, oh, sorry. There we go. So it is the red commercial center, and it's about 20 acres.
That's the area that we're talking about right now.
Just the red area.
Okay. Is that?
Maybe you're going to say this, Josh, but I was going to say when we get to the point of public comment, that really is kind of the menu of options before us, and it would be super helpful if folks let us know if you love the idea of heavy industrial, if you'd like the lightest touch of neighborhood center, none of which align with the applicant's proposal, but that's out there too to comment on.
Or commercial center, which is the applicant's proposal.
That is right.
Hopefully we have some new shared vocabulary. Okay, we're good? Okay, thanks. So now, where is Andrew? Andrew Hagemeyer.
Great,
Please,
thanks.
Andrew, take a moment to introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Andrew Hagemeyer. And I'm tired. Yeah, I'm Andrew Hagemeyer. I'm the Community and Economic Development Director from Missoula County. And part of what I do is I manage Missoula County's targeted economic development districts. And as mentioned,
what are those?
I will tell you all about that. Yeah. As mentioned, this site is in a targeted economic development district. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to explain what a targeted economic development district is. That's also, we call it a TED. And I'm going to talk about the context related to this specific development proposal and this specific TED. Okay, so The subject property is in a targeted economic development district, and that's the last time I'm going to say it. From here on, I'm saying TED because I'm falling over it. It's in a TED called Bonner West Log Yard. And in addition to the applicant's properties that they showed earlier, the building that, the very big building out there that I think people call Harris Thermal, casually, and then that's not, or that's within the district as well, and as well as the Northwestern Energy Substation that's kind of up against the river is also within the TED. So a TED is a type of tax increment financing district. I think most people are probably familiar with, or at least have heard of a tax increment financing, but probably haven't heard of a TED. A TED is just a type of tax increment financing. Tax increment financing is really complicated to try to explain to people in a setting like this, but I think there's important context here, so I'm going to try. Part of the reason why it's so hard to explain is it's the nexus of three very technical disciplines. You've got land use planning as one discipline involved with in tax increment financing. You've got finance itself as another discipline, and then also you have tax law all involved in tax increment financing. And I bring that up because it's relative to what we're looking at. We're talking about land use planning processes, but why it's so important is because the applicant is looking to use tax increment financing generated from this TED to help fund the infrastructure, the public infrastructure that makes the vertical development of the property happen.
The housing.
The housing, and I would assume the other aspects as well. So tax increment financing is a tool local governments use to finance public infrastructure. It's things like roads, sewer, and water. For a targeted economic development district, a TED, its pretty much sole purpose, its primary purpose is to fund public infrastructure. It's actually very, very, very effective at funding public infrastructure. It's used all across the state of Montana. It's used almost in every state in the country. It's really good at getting things done, getting things built. So generally how it works is the local government goes through a study, a process, and they create a district, the TED in this case. And what the TED does, what that district does, is it basically says where taxes go. So property taxes is what we're talking about when we're talking about taxes. Property taxes, when you look at your tax bill, you'll see that Missoula County actually itemizes out where all of your property taxes go. It says what it all gets used for. So prior to the creation of the district, up until the creation of the district, the property taxes that have been collected in that district continue to go to the same places that they've always gone to. That is called the base. Once the district is created, when new development occurs and new property taxes are generated, those property taxes go to an account for the targeted economic development district, and that is called increment. So let's say before the TED was created, there are property taxes collected in this geographic boundary collected $1 million a year. Once let's say a TED was created 5 years later, now that area is collecting $1.2 million per year. Well, the first $1 million keeps going to the same place, wherever it used to go to. That $200,000, that's the increment. That goes to the district. And the district can use that to finance infrastructure. So how do we use the increment is a really important thing. It's a lot like how you get paid, right? So we have jobs and we get paid, we have a salary, right? You can use that salary, that money that you make, to do things like go to the bank to get a loan to buy a house. The bank wants to see how much you make, how long you've been making that. They want to know about your house. Is it a good deal? What the terms of that agreement are. And if they think it's all a good deal, they give you a loan to buy that house. And then you use your salary to pay it back. So it's the same thing with tax increment financing districts. We take that increment and we go to the bank and say, we want to build a water system, for example. And then the bank looks at how much money that district makes, its salary, and it decides, it figures out if you make enough money to make the payments, this system seems like a good asset for the community, we'll loan you money to build the water system. That's called a bond. And so we issue a bond based off of that. We use that tax increment to pay the principal of that bond. Oftentimes, now there's two ways this can work. The county can build the infrastructure and use the tax increment to finance to pay for that infrastructure. But oftentimes what you see is a developer come forward and say, hey, I want to build in this area that's lacking infrastructure. And I will personally finance this infrastructure up front if you commit to tax increment financing to reimburse me for building this infrastructure. That's actually a really common way to do this, and it's actually a way that we did it out at the Y with the Y water system. So you've got, it's really the only tool in our toolbox in Montana where we can really combine the power of local government and the power of the private sector together to create these public-private partnerships to build public infrastructure, and that's why it's such an effective tool. So that's tax increment finance. Now, I'll go to unless there's any questions from the two of you, I will move on to how it relates to this specific property. Moving on. All right, so we've been in conversations with the applicant of this proposal that you have here today for about 2 years on how we could maybe use the tax increment finance from this TED to help fund the infrastructure necessary to achieve this development. So the concept here that we've been talking about is that the applicant would come in, they would privately finance the infrastructure, and then the county would reimburse them through the tax increment district for that public infrastructure.
Increment.
With the increment, correct. So, but here's where it gets a little bit complicated, is that the Bonner West Log Yard TED district isn't wealthy. It actually only brings in about $60,000 a year of tax increment financing that we could pledge towards a bond. So if you only made $60,000 a year, I'm not sure you could actually get a loan to buy the median home price in Missoula right now. So we're not bonding right now for anything out of this tax increment district. So development needs to occur to increase the increment on the property. So that's why the applicant is proposing to self-finance this, so they can actually get that development going. And then once that money is there, then we will refinance and go to a bond. Yeah.
So just to be clear, the idea then would be that the applicant, and this is the proposal, not a done deal by any stretch. I'm just wanting to say this clearly so everyone understands. The idea is that the applicant would self-fund the creation of the travel plaza. Then once the travel plaza is up and built, it generates property taxes, and in our case, because it's in a TED district, it generates an increment. That means the difference between when this area had no travel plaza to when it has a travel plaza. It's going to generate more property taxes. And that annual chunk of property taxes is, in a sense, the salary by which the developer could then go ask us to join with him in a bond, a loan, that could be used to build the infrastructure. And that increment that comes from the town plaza would cover the loan that it takes to build the sewer and water, which would facilitate the housing.
Yeah. And that's a really common arrangement. We just did it a couple of weeks ago in the Grant Creek Crossing area. The difference here, though, the Grant Creek Crossing is a new TED. We just created that a little while ago, so it's got a big, long life ahead of it. While the Bonner West Log Yard TED is set to expire in November of 2029. So we have some time constraints we're working on in this district. 3 years until it expires, and 3 years in the development world is a pretty tight window. And our challenge here is that there is roughly an 18-month delay from when a property is built to when the check for those property taxes actually end up in the district's bank account.
That has a lot to do with how the Department of Revenue assesses properties.
Absolutely. So what we're talking about here is the Department of Revenue assesses the property, and then they pass that assessment to the county, and then the county creates their budget, sets the mills, and sends that tax bill out.
When would this travel plaza actually have to be up and constructed such that it could generate income to bond against the infrastructure prior to the sunsetting of the district?
So in order to reach the full potential of any sort of vertical development, in order to be able to bond before the district sunsets, and what we mean by sunset is the district expires, it goes away. We would need certificate of occupancy in these buildings by the end of the year 2027. Because what happens is the Department of Revenue would then do their assessments on the property in January of 2028. They would send those assessments to Missoula County in August of 2028. The county commissioners would then set their budget in September of 2028. The math would be done on how much your tax bill would. It happens somehow between September and October, I think. Tax bills go out, and the first check from that 2027 completion ends up in the county's bank in December of 2028. The second check ends up in the county's bank account in May of 2029, and the district expires in November of 2029. So it's a tight time frame we're working on here.
So tight is not really the 2029, it's that the construction needs to be completed on the travel plaza by the end of 2027 in order to meet that 2029 deadline.
If we haven't generated enough increment in the district by 2029, we won't be able to bond for any infrastructure, and the district will expire and this tool will be gone.
Got it. Thank you. Dave.
And just to be clear, it would be increment on whatever gets built, whether it's a travel plaza or anything else.
Correct. Anything in their accounts.
So
Great point.
So conceivably, something else could be built that would generate a certain amount of increment that could be used as debt service for whatever infrastructure is envisioned. So,
and also, as we saw in the Grant Creek crossing, the developer could self-finance not vertical infrastructure, but the actual infrastructure, the sewer, water, et cetera, and then use a delayed reimbursement such that increment from the housing that follows the laying down of sewer and water and roads could actually pay itself back, as opposed to starting with a building.
Yeah, I mean, in
theory,
I would think, yeah, in practicality, I mean, we don't have an actual proposal yet for tax increment finance request. We don't have an actual application in yet, but in theory, I think it would work the same. The developer would self-finance, the vertical construction would happen, and then we would reimburse. Yeah.
All right, I get that's super complicated, folks, but I really wanted to make sure that you all had that information as best we could do. So now our next step would be to have the developer's representative, Jamie, come on up and talk to us about the specific proposal. Oh, and thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Commissioners. Jamie Erbacher with WGM Group, for the record. With me is Gregory Morris. I tend to call him Greg, so.
It's okay. You can use that abbreviation.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a slideshow here, and then after that, I will kick it off to Greg and let him start.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. I want to speak to everybody up here, but I also want to speak to everybody back here. I'm going to talk in your direction, but I'm going to say hi to everybody behind me real quick. My name's Greg Morse. I am the developer, as everybody likes to call me. I'm the developer. I've met with so many of you through this process, but there's a lot of faces here that I haven't seen before. You'll also find in these kinds of projects that the developer doesn't even show up. And I'm here, and I've been here for 2 years, and that's what I want to talk with you all about who haven't seen me speak, because there's a real good reason why I'm up here.
No. So As part of the process, the developer and the developer's representative do a presentation. That's how the process goes. And they don't get 3 minutes. They do their presentation.
So the first thing I'd like to correct is we're not building the travel plaza ourselves. We are selling land potentially to somebody who may build a travel plaza. My name's Greg Morse. I'm the developer, and I'm a mission-oriented developer. And my mission is attainable housing. That's what I wake up for every day. Every choice I've made on this project, some quite difficult, as we can see, is in the service of that mission. I'm originally from California. I live in Bozeman, and I'm a Bobcat fan. And I'm honest about that. You know everything bad about me right now. I'm also a Montanan, a Missoula business owner, a father to 3 amazing kids who I'd love to afford to be able to stay in the state. I serve on the executive committee of a nonprofit dedicated to ending family homelessness and providing affordable childcare. We give over $1 million in aid through our nonprofit. And by the way, that's not me, that's the board that I'm on. I can't do that kind of stuff. But I care about this work because I live it and I spend my time on it. Enough about me. I want to thank the commissioners, the Planning Commission, staff, my team at WGM, to my supporters that are here. I've definitely got a bunch. I won't let you down. To the 1,000 Missoulians who will eventually buy their first home here, raise their kids here, or live here, this wasn't the easy path, but it's all worth it. And to my critics, your feedback made this project better. Thank you for meeting with me, for listening, and for many of you becoming supporters. As we move forward, I hope you to continue to engage constructively. Mark, Keturah, Brett, Suzette, Tori, Lindsay, Monica, Amanda, John, Caroline, Bruce, and others. I hope that someday some of your children, family members, or friends live here, hikes or bikes here, enjoys a business here, or works here. I hope that I demonstrate through this development that we can mix uses together and deliver something that is great for this community. This is not a question of whether to have a travel plaza. This is a question of whether you'd prefer attainable housing, kids in Bonner School, trails, wastewater treatment, or the status quo of heavy industrial. I'm not, which could be a gravel pit, an asphalt plant, or a concrete plant. I'm not saying that to scare anybody. It's what the current zoning and lack of infrastructure allows, and it's also where there's interest from users. I have no interest whatsoever in that future. That's why I'm fighting to protect this neighborhood from that future. What I've heard, I started this project talking with neighbors almost 2 years ago. Here's what they've asked for, and here's what we've done to accommodate their requests. Neighbors asked for public lands and trails. We've dedicated public access easements for trails to Woody Mountain and up the Blackfoot River, including a connection between the 2 sections of Milltown State Park. We've offered additional parking for Milltown State Park at our cost. I'm converting the river frontage from industrial heavy to resource and open lands, tearing down fences in the non-industrial areas and opening the property to the community. I've actually, it was raised today that nobody will take the easement across our property. I'm a public lands warrior, and to that end, I've founded the Blackfoot Trails Allowance to preserve and access these trails, even if this whole thing blows up, because it's the right thing to do for our community. Neighbors asked for safety and traffic improvements. I'm building a sidewalk along First Street so kids can safely get to school instead of walking in the road. 2 protected crosswalks where none exist today. A dedicated left-hand turn signal from Highway 200 and a roundabout at First and Cowboy Trail. Neighbors asked for a reduction in industrial uses. I've eliminated all heavy industrial zoning we own except for 2 smaller light industrial lots. This blocks future use as a gravel pit while still allowing job-producing light industry. Neighbors asked for attainable housing. With county TIF support, I'll be delivering the most attainable starter homes Missoula has seen in years for sale and rent, with garages and yards many permanently affordable through partnerships with Habitat for Humanity, who is speaking here tonight, and Front Step Community Land Trust. Some have claimed that's just a promise. It's not. Our state and county leaders have attached an enforceable workforce housing requirement for projects using TIF funds, which I support wholeheartedly. And so importantly, these homes will be all electric, every roof will have solar, and I will ask everybody to hold me to that promise. I will tell you that that is not in the document, but if anybody's spoken with me over the last 2 years, they know how much time I've spent working towards that mission. Also, we've limited our density to what the neighbors have asked for. Neighbors asked for kids in Bonner School. I'm building hundreds of starter homes to bring families into the school community, not just studios and one bedrooms, to restore enrollment and deliver affordable housing for teachers. Neighbors have asked for community serving businesses. The zoning that we asked for specifically supports attainable commercial space, veterinarians, gyms, coffee shops, restaurants, food trucks, daycare, medical, and maybe even a farmer's market, a co-op, or a grocery if the community supports one. Neighbors have asked for wastewater and water. After months of hard work, our wastewater treatment plant is now pending approval by the Montana Department of Environmental Quality. With one procedural issue we're wrapping up as we speak. It eliminates more than 20 permitted exempt wells and septic systems and replaces them with 2 DEQ tested wells sited far from the community and brings fire hydrants and fire water storage to an area that has none. Finally, neighbors have asked me to be a good neighbor. I've participated in community council meetings, supported trash cleanups, hosted hikes with the Bonner Milltown History Center, towed abandoned vehicles that were abandoned on the property by the Yellowstone organization, by the property manager of that organization for years, and I paid out of pocket to have those towed. I've made a lot of friends here, and I promise after this meeting ends, I'll continue to be a good neighbor. And by the way, I've met with every single person that's ever asked to speak with me, and I have put myself in front of every person that didn't want to speak to me so that I could get their feedback and incorporate this and deliver a great project for the community. We have a handful of areas of disagreement. I'd like to call them areas where we haven't yet found agreement, because I will fight every day to resolve issues. Generally, if people ask me and if I can accommodate something, I will. First of all, the Travel Plaza. We're not really supposed to talk about the Travel Plaza in these meetings, and that's a whole nother legal thing, but 15 acres of 107 acres may be a Travel Plaza. If I could make it work without it, I would. But that's the reality of fighting to deliver on my attainable housing vision. 15 acres of Travel Plaza funds 92 acres of community benefit, sidewalks, wastewater treatment, public lands, and attainable housing. It's regulated by modern zoning, located as far as possible from the surrounding homes, and significantly smaller than the existing Travel Plaza. Local businesses. A common refrain in the comments is the community would like a grocery or some other community serving businesses. I absolutely agree. Our zoning request and community plan includes exactly those modest-sized, attainable commercial space to support these kinds of businesses. I'd also like to bring a market as soon as there's enough demand to support one. Candidly, there's a new dollar store with a really actually pretty nice market now 2 minutes away from the site. There's also another grocery store 7 minutes away or 10 minutes away, depending how you time it. I'd like to talk a little bit about binding commitments, because that's one of the other reasons people have questioned me and I've been unable to respond online to, so I feel I need to respond to that. Some have questioned whether travel improvements and attainable housing are just promises. They're not. As part of this approval, we are legally required to deliver traffic and safety improvements, the majority of that in the first phase. And if we take $1 of TIF funding, we have a binding legal agreement to deliver attainable workforce housing. Both are enforceable by this board. I would add that everything I've talked about in here, with the exception of the solar on the roofs, is a binding commitment. Zoning density. Some say our density is too dense. Others say we should build more housing. We've tried to find the right balance, and we've offered a binding limit on density to address the concern. But I will not accept zoning that adds tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to the cost of these homes. Housing attainability is the mission, and I will not compromise on that. Water supply and wastewater. Some have raised concerns about the impact on the aquifer and the river. I'd like to reiterate that our wells are required to be tested by a hydrogeologist, while neighboring well is monitored to ensure water levels are not impacted. Our wastewater plan has been approved by the Montana Department of Environmental Quality and exceeds the standards required of us. And it will be monitored by DEQ and licensed wastewater operators. Finally, others worry I'll build the travel plaza and nothing else. I've spent 2 years of my life on this, and I'm not walking away from this attainable housing vision or this community. But even in that scenario, the neighborhood gets sidewalks, public trails, wastewater treatment, and is blocked from being a gravel pit. It's not perfect, but it's a far cry from what could be there today. In conclusion, first of all, and this is what I'm going to say to the group, most of you love talking, food, and beer. If anybody wants to continue this conversation, I invite every person in this room to join me at Kettle House Brewing this evening at 5:30, where we'll be having food and beer. I'd love to talk about how we can make this a true asset for the community and help craft the mission of the Blackfoot Trails Alliance, or just enjoy a good conversation. In the 2 years I've worked on this project, I've come to love this community and this place. It's that potential that has motivated me to pursue this more difficult path. Here's to the kids that grow up here, go to school here, and fight to make the world a better place. Here's to the trails, public lands, sidewalks, jobs, and community businesses this site will support. Here's to the attainable housing for families and to leaving the world better than we found it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I'm going to continue on with a little bit, maybe some of the boring facts. So before we jump into the specific project details, I just want to provide a little bit more of a deeper dive into the site's history. As Kathleen mentioned, the property was historically part of the Stimson Mill Lumber Company property and operated as the log yard. The majority of the operations occurred south of the Blackfoot River. However, logs and millings were stored on the subject property. After the mill shut down in 2008, ending roughly 122 years of continuous lumber production, the property sat vacant for years. In 2014, FM LLC purchased the property. When under the ownership of FM LLC, a heavy industrial subdivision was planned. Several discussions with the county occurred, many of which focused on funding infrastructure for an industrial subdivision of this size. This is when the Bonner West Log Yard not normally?
We ask permission.
If you would like, we can.
I'm going to ask something that's unusual because I actually would love to get public comment started.
As soon as you guys are done, we'll do public comment.
Is there anything here we can yield to so that they can talk?
I think.
Sorry, I'm throwing this on A.
Let me see what time.
And we're going to be meeting again on the 12th. Right?
Yeah.
Was the 12th? Yeah.
So could we be able to?
Sure.
So let's yield.
Yeah. Okay.
I
great.
want comment.
Fantastic.
Like I said, everybody, please come to Kettle House. I will be there to talk and learn and listen and indicate to you the type of person that I am, and I'm actually trying to do my best here.
Okay. So hang on. Okay. So we'll hear from you guys on the 12th, and we'll jump right now to public comment. Anybody who wants to speak, it's 3 minutes. Dave's going to operate the shot clock. And just say your name. Make sure you turn the mic on.
Yeah, sorry for that interruption.
It's okay.
Bye-bye.
Say that again. Yeah, if you want to make a line, you're more than welcome to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Am I on here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My name's Mark Metzger. I've been a resident in West Riverside for over 7 years. I created No New Bonner Truck Stop petition after listening to friends and neighbors raise concerns. Another truck stop being proposed by Blackfoot Crossing directly across the street from the current Bonner Town Pump. The petition reads, by signing this petition, you are stating your strong opposition to a new truck stop or travel plaza at the Blackfoot Crossing development site in Bonner, Montana. We believe this development would significantly reduce the area's desirability as a place to live, visit, and raise a family. These are the signatures of the petitions. I also delivered some to you yesterday. The No New Bonner Truck Stop Party and hundreds of locals we reached out to recommends that the county commissioners deny the developer's request for commercial center CC zoning, land identified on the maps as lots 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27, slated for Travel Plaza in Phase 1 development. Our party recommends that the county commissioners instead approve Neighborhood Center, NC zoning, for the land slated Travel Plaza identified on the map as lots 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27. Thank you for the opportunity to present this petition. Please listen to our concerns and make a zoning to keep Bonner, Milltown, West Riverside a safe, family-oriented community area for as long as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger.
Yeah, thank you.
We're going to try not to do any yelling, clapping, anything, just stay chill.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the proposed zoning changes for Blackfoot Crossing. My name is Tori Proby, and I'm a resident of West Riverside. Over the last several months, I've had the opportunity to meet with hundreds of my neighbors, our city council, the developer of Blackfoot Crossing, and several experts in the field of sustainable housing and zoning expansion. Through all of my time and research, I am sure that I am for amending the zoning to neighborhood center to allow for density-friendly housing, local small businesses, and sustainable growth. Missoula County wants healthy growth. We should prioritize housing density, small businesses, river protection, and community gathering spaces. We should focus on thoughtful infill and mixed-use development encouraged by neighborhood center zoning that strengthens community identity rather than turning our gateway into another stretch of highway commerce. The developer will have you believe that we are in an all-or-nothing situation, and that simply isn't true. We deserve creative solutions that don't just rely on the easiest trite developments that are hurting small towns like ours all across Montana. Adding a second truck stop may seem like a small commercial decision in the interest of potential but not guaranteed housing expansion, but its long-term impacts on residents, the environment, and sustainable growth would be significant and bad. West Riverside already provides access to fuel, convenience goods, and highway services. A second large-scale gas station and convenience store would mar the beauty and desirability of our community. Bonner is not designed to function as a high-volume commercial truck stop corridor. It's a residential community. Expanding fuel infrastructure shifts the identity of this town away from a place people live and thrive and toward a place people pass through. Bonner sits along the Blackfoot River, one of Montana's most iconic waterways. Additional unnecessary fuel storage tanks increase the risk of leaks, groundwater contamination, and long-term soil degradation. We should be investing in infrastructure that aligns with long-term stability, not expanding infrastructure that locks us further into carbon-intensive patterns of growth. These risks are even higher when you account for the importance of recreating along the Blackfoot and the income Missoula receives from that recreation. Growth is necessary east of Missoula. The question is not whether West Riverside will change, it's how. Adding another major highway-oriented commercial development encourages sprawl and auto-centric expansion. Gas stations tend to attract more strip development, drive-throughs, large parking lots, and chain retail. That pattern spreads infrastructure outward, increases public service costs, and reduces walkability and affordability. This isn't about opposing business. It's about asking what kind of town we want to become. Do we want Bonner to be defined by another brightly lit fuel canopy, or by its river, its neighborhoods, and its connection to the landscape? A second travel plaza would generate short-term revenue for a cash-strapped developer, but the long-term costs to community, character, environmental health, and sustainable growth are far greater. Let's choose a future that protects Bonner's identity, safeguards the Blackfoot, and supports smart, resilient development. Thank you.
Thanks, Tori.
I timed myself.
You did great. Good work. Tori, you nailed it to the minute. So keep an eye on the shot clock and see if you can do as good as Tori did.
Well, we'll try. My name is Katura Huskin. I'm a mom, a small business owner, and a homeowner in West Riverside. We moved to this area from Missoula for its quiet, historic neighborhood and laid-back feel, and for proximity to my husband's job at Bonner School, which he has held for 13 years. I have 2 young kids, and when sharing my concerns about this project, my youngest said he felt so deeply sad about a truck stop going in right by our neighborhood because it would ruin how peaceful our neighborhood feels. My oldest expressed deep concern that it won't feel safe for him to walk his dog independently in our neighborhood. Please listen to the entreaties of the children and show them that their lives and their words matter. They are the next generation of landowners and community members in this area, and we want them to have a bright future and a thriving community. We urge you to carefully consider the ramifications of this entire project. The truck stop alone brings concerns not only of additional light, noise, and air pollution, but also pavement runoff into the Blackfoot River. Additionally, the wastewater effluent dumping into the river brings concerns about the impacts on river temperature and overall health as habitat for species like the bull trout. These effects make a truck stop in direct opposition to the county's goal to fight climate change, protect this river that is a vital resource and recreation for the community. Furthermore, if the developer is serious about wanting to benefit this area and stick it out for the long haul, then we urge you to change his plan for commercial center zoning to the other option of neighborhood center zoning. This would still allow commercial properties, but ones that are more likely to benefit our community. We categorically oppose the second truck stop here. Please understand that we're not opposing all change or even traffic increases. We would welcome new people into the community. What we are opposing is someone coming in and telling us what is best for our community, who doesn't live here and has no stake in what this community looks like in 10 years, who at the end of the day is here to make a profit and not actually listen to the deep concerns of the community. To be clear, when meeting with the developer, he stressed that the choice is not between things like a grocery store and a truck stop, but a truck stop and a gravel pit or other heavy industrial uses. I want to argue that additional heavy industrial uses are not appropriate for this area either. That zoning was established decades ago when we didn't know as much as we do today about the environmental and health impacts on surrounding communities and environment from heavy industrial. Please do not allow this threat and overt intimidation to sway the vote. We have already seen some of our neighbors swayed by fear of a gravel pit. Let's work together to paint a picture of a bright, bold future for this historic rural area. We have access to a beautiful river and recreation. We have strong, resilient, helpful neighbors. And we have become a spot for everything from concerts to local chocolate delicacies. And as things continue to get more and more expensive in Missoula, let this continue to grow to be a safe haven for affordable housing, walkable communities and outdoor spaces, and a healthy, safe, and pleasant community. If the county doesn't stand up for us and fight for a livable community, who will? Show us that you care about your constituents and your community members. Vote for NC zoning.
Thanks, Couture. You did it. Sir, you're up.
Howdy. Do I push
Yes,
the
sir. Push it in. It should be green, and then we'll start the clock.
My name is Brett Stevenson. I've been a resident of West Riverside for a decade. It's the only home my son has known. He'll be 9 in a few weeks. The other morning, we were walking to his grandma's house. She lives next door to us. I took a deep breath, said, I love these mornings with the air and the sky. I want all my son's mornings to be like that, full of clean air and beautiful skies. So I oppose this. Another truck stop introduced into our community will negate the fact that our home is not in a historic neighborhood, near a river, within walking distance to a school. It has a beautiful state park. I've had bears in my yard. I've ride across Bighorn sheep in the Lions Park. The other day, me and my son have even rescued baby trout that were trapped underwater. It was just like the ice is just going down. But anyways, I'm just going to skip ahead. There are 17 truck stops surrounding this whole area within a 20-mile radius. There's no shortage of places for truckers to eat, rest, fuel up, get a proper meal. Bonner already has one truck stop and expanding immensely. It's getting bigger as we speak, and there's nothing that has been said about the proposed one that can convince me that we need another one. And I believe the NC Neighborhood Center is a far better fit for the location proposed to BCC. And I also believe that Neighborhood Center would be better for IC. Are y'all folks ready to be the hero that the community needs? Make the correct zoning decision, not just for my family, for every child, teen, adult, and animals, including our community. Zone all the land neighborhood center and build a legacy everyone can be proud of for generations to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. No, we're going to be chill, remember?
Hello, I'm Gary Matson. I've resided in West Riverside for almost 60 years and have a lot of pride and affection for the place and the community. My working career was in science, where the method is to thoroughly research a subject to learn what is true and then act accordingly. After months of giving my attention to the proposal, I am confident that Blackfoot Crossing, though not perfect, will bring new and important assets to our community. I strongly support the growth policy and zoning amendments. I have also become well acquainted with Greg Morse, the Blackfoot Crossing developer. I have complete confidence that his personal values, integrity, honesty, respect, dependability, along with his exceptional energy, commitment, and expertise, are evidence that he'll do what he says he'll do, and he'll do it right. Thanks for this opportunity to comment.
Thanks, Gary.
Good afternoon. I am Suzette Dussault. I recommend that you rezone this 107 acres neighborhood commercial to preserve the land for the opportunity to build a neighborhood, a community, as in compliance with the Missoula County Growth Policy and Master Plan. A travel plaza does not a community make. Our beloved Missoula, we all agree, desperately needs worker housing which builds community. We have seen too often the Precious Valley floor being dedicated to commercial and not to residential uses. This is a prime opportunity to stop that. We need neighborhoods which have backyard habitat, trees, boulevards, community gardens, gathering places such as bakeries, breweries, coffee shops, groceries, even laundries and neighborhood clinics. We need a variety of housing. What an opportunity for tiny homes, for small footprint, single family homes, for duplexes, for human scale apartment buildings. I live in the Hip Strip neighborhood. We have 2 apartment buildings and 14 single family homes, and we house about 200 people, or excuse me, 100 people in our neighborhood. Very sustainable quality of life. As I've said, too much of our Precious Valley floor has been devoted to commercial, which is now underutilized, and we're finding empty lots and acres of asphalt and single-story, single-use buildings. What little left of our valley floor needs to be dedicated to providing housing for our families. I have been interested in the growth plan of Missoula County, and it talks about things such as the big idea, the idea of community. It talks about the people of our community and how important it is to support their well-being. The growth policy also defends our right to a clean and healthful environment. It's fundamentally important to who we become as a community. It wants to protect critical lands and natural resources. It wants to recognize the economic and social well-being tied to the quality of our natural environment. It looks to the long-term economic stability and high-quality living environment, and this should not be sacrificed by short-term economic gain. Social and attractive physical characteristics in neighborhoods.
Suzette, I'm sorry, we're done.
To go back.
I'm sorry, we're sticking to the 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Jamie Lawrence. I have owned a property at basically the corner of First Street and West Riverside since 2017. While living there, I have transformed what used to be a very, very green lawn into a farm, essentially. We raise ducks, we create a lot of our own food, And that is one of the most important parts of living in this neighborhood. Now, I think Greg really, really means this. I believe him. I think that his heart project, this sustainable and attainable housing, truly is what we're trying to get to. Now, I have some questions, and I think that part of the reason that we are leaning towards the commercial center versus the neighborhood, versus the neighborhood center is because we're thinking that we won't have enough funds to pay for the infrastructure. But what if we're able to extend the TED? What if we're able to make that timeline, which is so short, and we're going to have such a small amount of time? What if that is extended and that allows for us to court more businesses that would make a lot of us happier? So those are my questions. Why can't we extend the TED? If we can, does that mean that we can get everyone a lot happier, but still get the heart project, still get those sidewalks, still do all of those things that I believe Greg wants to do? I do trust him. I've met his dog. His dog is so nice. I think she's an incredible attribute because, evil people don't have nice dogs. All right, so first off, Greg, there you are. I'm going to hold you to those solar panels because I'm pretty sure I was the first person in our neighborhood to have them, and I want there to be more. Sidewalks, thank you. Thank you. Open lands access, no longer will I be trespassing. And finally, see you at Kettle House.
Thanks. And Jamie, now's not the opportunity for us to do back and forth with questions. It's just public comment. But I do invite you to send Andrew an email, who is our expert on TEDs.
Will do. Greetings, commissioners. My name is Kirsten Miller. I'm an urban planner with a deep personal connection to the Missoula area. My parents bought their home just blocks from the university in 1970 for under $20,000 on a teacher's salary. Today, that home is worth nearly $1 million. I want my daughter's family to one day be able to afford a home in a neighborhood in the Missoula area. And to achieve this, we need innovative options like the Blackfoot Crossing proposal. Beyond my personal stake, I'm actively engaging with this project through my work, co-leading the Future Build intern program with the University of Montana College of Business and my nonprofit, EcoCity Builders. We're using the Blackfoot Crossing project as a real-world case study to explore the future of workforce housing and sustainable neighborhood systems. The developer's been really open to collaboration, and we have workshops planned to research and help refine the energy, water, transportation, and commercial elements of the project. This proposal is a direct and practical application of the Missoula County Growth Policy. It champions mixed-use development by creating a walkable neighborhood with diverse housing, and it's not just these car-dependent apartment blocks that we find nearby in East Missoula. It's an infill project, and it's not sprawl, and it's located near a school that needs more children. It aligns with the policy sustainability goals. It's incorporating advanced water treatment, preserving significant open space, including the riverfront protection. It's delivering community amenities. It includes the sidewalks, the bike lanes, regional trail access. It's promoting a healthy, active community as envisioned in the growth policy. And it's supporting economic development. It includes the space for the local commercial ventures. Specifically, I think Lot 23, which is right next to what the Travel Plaza lots are proposed for. I feel like the Lot 23 and those other areas next to it can become an interesting cooperative proposal, and my team and myself were kind of working on starting those conversations. Cooperatives have been a backbone of rural development in Montana, and this project offers a real chance to root local wealth in the community through models like a market hall or a general store. And then finally, it embodies the smart reuse of industrial sites. So it's transforming a former log yard into a vibrant place for families. Now, I understand and I fully appreciate how difficult the role of your decision-making as commissioners, and I appreciate that.
Thank
you
Kirsten.
very much.
Thanks a lot.
Hello, my name's Shannon. I live on 9th Street in West Riverside. I just want to say that this project sounds great, right? From a point of view of someone that tries not to be someone that doesn't, want housing and that wants community growth in a way that's positive. But I don't think that sacrificing having a giant travel plaza for all this growth works for us as a community. I think having the neighborhood center zoning would work for everyone. It seems like what everybody that I've talked to wants. But also there is an option just not to develop it. If that's the price, then maybe this isn't the area to build these heart projects that we, this community, because the infrastructure isn't there. Like that's a possibility as well. I don't know if anyone really sometimes when these balls start rolling, you can't stop them, I guess, but there is an option just not to do that. Not that I would want a gravel pit. That's clearly not something that anyone wants. But I also have faith in our community and our government that we wouldn't let something like that impact the river and that wouldn't happen. So just as a resident of West Riverside, I want to say that the neighborhood zoning is what I am for. So,
Thank you, Shannon.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Monica Trenell, and I may be the only person who can say I trained for the Olympics on this site.
On this site.
And I have walked the property with Greg. He's been very generous and shown me around in his vision of what he wants to do out there. And I've knocked doors with Mark and the residents of Bonner and heard from the people directly that they don't want a travel plaza. They're very clear about that. And I think it was unfortunate that some people didn't get to speak earlier because people who live out there work and can't make time to come and give public comment. So I know that you're getting a lot of online things, and I would just urge you to pay attention to that. I would ask that you not look at false choices. I don't think it's an either or. I think we can have investment and affordable housing and all of the commitments that we are being promised. And I would urge the commission to consider ways to make the promises meaningful and enforceable over time. And so it's not going to be an easy decision, but there are a lot of people here telling you what they want, and I would ask that you listen to the people of Bonner. And I spoke with John McLean. This is the 50th anniversary of A River Runs Through It, and I spoke with him yesterday, and he wanted me to share with you his message that the people of Bonner should decide their own fate. So I share that message, and there are many, many of us who stand with you, the people of Bonner. So thank you, and thank you, Greg, for investing in Montana.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Dylan Huskin. I own a home on 3rd Street within view of the West Log Yard, and I teach at Bonner School. But I'm here today as a dad and a neighbor, and the views expressed are my own. Sorry. I'm glad to see all my West Riverside neighbors here, including parents and grandparents of current and former students. I know we don't all agree on every aspect of the potential development, but I am nevertheless grateful for their civic participation. Can you tell I teach civics? So a big reason schools exist, I think, is to help our youth develop their voice. And it's this belief that inspires my teaching. So I'm here to ask some questions of the commissioners, and maybe you've considered them already. Was the plan all along to have a travel plaza or to sell it to somebody who would most likely develop a travel plaza? Or is this some sort of pivot? And did some unforeseen circumstance make the travel plaza seem like the only thing that could make future phases like infrastructure in the log yard possible? And is the development of the log yard so fragile that one or a few setbacks now leaves us with a travel plaza as a savior? So is this ever a sound investment in the first place? I don't know. Is it part of a development playbook? Because if a travel plaza was not originally part of any plan, and now it is, or could be, then what is stopping another pivot and another pivot and another compromise and another compromise and another ideal on the cutting room floor because it's not financially justifiable to investors who don't live here. So the possibility of a looming travel plaza makes me think that in the development world, positive change is rarely the guiding star and is instead merely incidental to making profit. It saddens me to think that we may be teaching each other the following lesson. So much of what a society needs to address its problems cannot be offered unless first we accept more of the same systems that exacerbate our problems. I want to believe the developer when he says he is a person of certain values, with which I personally agree. But a travel plaza is forever and thus unacceptable. It seems to me it is only acceptable to some people as a means to an end, but we don't have any way of truly knowing what the end is. We can only put our trust in the process, and the process has shown us so far how matter-of-factly somebody can pivot to telling the community we have to choose between a rock and a hard place, a truck stop or a gravel pit. This is where I believe the commissioners can put their collective expertise and vision together in ways that supports development and the county's growth policy goals without clearing a path for a second travel plaza. I believe the commercial center zoning leaves open too many doors to development that will hurt the community, and I urge the commissioners to consider neighborhood center zoning for the area of the West Log Yard, currently be proposed as CC zoning. Use what tools you have. I implore you. I know you know them better than I. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi. My name is Todd Francevic. I'm the Director of Habitat for Humanity of Missoula. I offer you two pieces of good news. I'm not going to say a thing about a travel plaza. I'm probably also not going to take 3 minutes. But I am going to remind you that we live in one of the hardest housing markets in the nation. I have colleagues in Honolulu. We've surpassed them for cost of living. The people that I work with are going to fight like hell this year to put 6 families in homes. When you're looking at this project, remember that if you have a home, congratulations. My goal is to advocate for this project because it advocates for housing. We lose a place for the people who work here to live. We will lose the people who work here. And if you know anyone in Jackson Hole, ask them how that's going. I am just imploring everyone. I understand the issues that people are talking about. They've talked to me about them. But I would like the approach to be one where we collect ourselves and try to find a way to resolve this so that we can keep the housing component of it. This community so desperately needs it. So I want to thank everybody, agreeing and not agreeing, because it's important that we do this. But I don't want the housing to go away because it's swept up in the issue about the travel plaza. I just want that to stay up front. So I thank you all.
And sir, you will be the last person for today, and then we will meet up on the 12th. We'll hear from Jamie and anyone else who would like to speak.
Okay.
And folks online, we'll see you on the 12th. Please join in then. And also, you can send us more comments between now and the 12th. If you can't make it in person or online, you can email us as well. Go ahead, sir.
Mike Jarnovic, Pillsville. The Blackfoot Crossing is the developmentally challenged brainchild of yet another out-of-county developer looking to extract a bounty of dollars at the expense of the local community. We saw this with the proposal to put apartments on Fort Missoula in 1993. We saw it again last year when another developer tried to tie an economic engine, in this case the construction of an apartment complex on the fort, to the remediation of the Fort Missoula Post Hospital. Now this. Let me say right up front that I am against this project in its entirety for the following reasons. I will oppose vociferously any petroleum facility adjacent to a watershed. In this case, our beloved Blackfoot River. I oppose the construction of the current town pump, which is much too close to the river. And all it takes is one spillage, one leakage, and the environmental destruction is long-term, if not permanent. While on the subject of water, I am deeply concerned that this project will have a significant impact on the local aquifer, which is directly linked to the Blackfoot River. A river, I might add, that for the last few years has been so far below historical levels as to be critically endangered. We learned years ago that development next to watersheds is a bad idea. Yet we persist in thinking that there will be a negligible impact on the water. Increased traffic to an already overloaded Highway 200 is also a valid concern that should not be taken lightly. It is not hard to envision even more aberrant behavior by feckless motorists who care little about safety and sanity. And lastly, according to the Montana Department of Redundancy Department, a second truck stop across from the first truck stop is illogical, unnecessary, and manifestly stupid. It will benefit no one but the developer, who incidentally doesn't live here and clearly doesn't know or care about the impact of its shortcomings. Development can be a good thing if done properly. It can benefit the local community, and the developer can be lauded for delivering what locals want and need. But when a developer demands compensation that few are willing to accept as non-negotiable part of that development, it is an obvious no-go. In short, I oppose this entire project. It is short-sighted, damaging, and reeks of intimidation.
Thanks. And thanks, everybody. And please send us your comments online. Email if you can't come. Otherwise, we'll see you on the 12th. We'll do more public comment and we'll hear from Jamie.